quite interested in that same conversation with Mike Clayton, and I mean, how much influence did Paraparaumu Beach have on that? He used the analogy. I mean, he was hitting a 4-iron into 16 in the 1988 New Zealand Open. Now, I guess if you pulled your yardage book out or you did whatever, you go, you're not going to hit a 4-iron 126 meters. But he was saying that you probably developed. I mean, is it true that you developed your your appreciation of what a shot looked like, perhaps?
To grow up, like for myself, to play and caddy on a links golf course is just so much more valuable than an inland course. There's just no two ways about it, because I've got very good at eyeballing distances as a caddy, and that has come from links caddying on a links golf course, because every day the conditions are different on a links golf course, and Paraparaumu Beach is no different. You know as well as I do how much different that golf course plays in a southerly to a northerly to an easterly and a westerly. And when you're on a links golf course, you've got to be able to visualize and you've got to be able to picture. I would never have become as an efficient caddy as what I became if I hadn't have been learning my trade on a links golf course. There's just no two ways about it, because the conditions vary so much. Now, if you compare that to an inland golf course, and that the conditions can be the same, but the golf course doesn't play as difficult as does as what a links course does. Because when the wind, links golf, seaside links golf, as we all know, the heavy air, the light air, and that. And I discovered that very quickly at Paraparaumu Beach. The difference between a southerly and a northerly. Well, the northerly air is not as heavy as a southerly, and it's not as cold. I sussed all that stuff out. It was very quickly to work all that kind of stuff out.
Right.
And I was just going to say, Colin Wilson was a very, the great man that lived there on the left-hand side of the ninth hole, long-standing member there of the golf club of that. We used to have a couple of conversations about that sort of thing. He was very aware of the velocity, the heaviness of the wind and that sort of thing. I remember talking to him about that sort of thing. So I learned very quickly.
It was really interesting, over Easter. I mean, unfortunately, the Masters wasn't able to be played this year, and there's obviously more important things going on in the world right now. But it was wonderful seeing that old footage or the historical stuff from the Masters and over the years from the 70s and 80s and 90s, and just touching again on that forthright attitude. And you mentioned Greg Norman earlier being a difficult person to work for, or 1989, you're on the 72nd hole there with Greg. You're on the bag for him, and there looked like to be a fairly animated conversation going on over a club selection, perhaps.
Yeah, look, that was the final round, playing with Mark O'Meara from memory, and Greg was playing great. I mean, just needed 4 up the last hole to win the tournament, and he elected to hit an iron off the tee, which I didn't agree with to start with. I thought it was a cool day. The ball wasn't going a long way in that. And I thought driver was a good play there. If you hit it into that first bunker, even if you hit a drive into that first bunker, the lip on that first bunker is very durable. But it's that second bunker that you can't go into at Augusta on 18. The lip is very, very high there. If you don't hit the shot perfect, you're not going to hit it on the green. But the first one's durable there, and he was a great fairway bunker player. So I thought, get it up level with that first bunker, even if you go in that bunker. But he elected it an iron off the tee, which left him back short of that bunker. And then you're on a very, very steep lie. Typical usual Sunday pin front left there. And it was 186 yards. It was a 4-iron. It was all day. And he wants that 5-iron. I did everything I could to convince him. There's just no possible way you can get a 5-iron there. I said, he used to use that Tour Edition ball, which spun a lot, and it was wet that day. And there's no way that whatever the front of the green was, you've got to carry it at least 4 past the front of the green, because that front right part of the green's just got that bit of slope into it. And I could see there's just no way that he could hit a 5-iron past that front of that slope. And even where the pin was, you can hit it 10 paces past that flag into the hill, and it comes back. And it was at some point when you're having a discussion with a player, you've got to back off, because the more you try and tell them the club that it is and they don't want to hit it, they're not going to hit a good shot with the club they choose anyway, because you've just, there's been too much attention. But it was never a 5-iron, and he hit the 5-iron as good as he can hit it, and it's in the air, and I can see exactly. I've seen the shot before he hit it. It landed it on that slope. He got the tourist ball, it's wet, and it spun all the way down that hill. It was like came back about 17 metres short of the green or something, because it was wet, and that ball spun more than any ball at the time. So that was frustrating. And then the other time they were on 18 and he hit it way right at the back. So,
it's interesting. And then on another occasion when it might have been in the playoff when Larry Mize chipped in on him. And you kind of wonder. I'm a huge fan of Greg Norman. Growing up, he was my absolute idol. Do you think if some of those things had have gone the opposite way, Greg might have been, I guess, more successful in terms of majors? I mean, he certainly was successful in terms of being the number one golfer X amount of weeks and tournament wins. But do you think that might have set a different course for him?
Yeah, look, hard to know, Leo. He took those punches very well. I mean, he was a great competitor. He never showed that it affected him. I mean, look, obviously when he lost the Masters against Nick Faldo when he had a 7-shot lead, that really affected him. And I actually spent the Sunday night with him that Sunday night after he lost a 7-shot lead, and we sat on the beach outside his house from the moment we got back to his place. He just happened to ask me to come back. That's when he asked me to come back and caddy for him. But look, you don't know. I mean, I often think that Tour Edition golf ball that he used, although he was immensely successful, I think if he had been playing a different golf ball, things might have been a whole lot different. That ball spun so much, and he was a prolific spinner of the golf ball anyway. So the way he had to map his way around a golf course was somewhat different to a lot of players, because he had to always hit it past the hole when it was soft, because it spun so much. And if he used the ball with less spin, I think he could have been a far greater player. Like, he was a Spalding player, and he was the pitch for that golf ball. He used a Tour Edition. That's what, because Greg knew Norman was using a Tour Edition. That was what sold that golf ball, and he was sort of committed to using that ball. But he never really let on too much whether it did affect him or not. I mean, look, if you were to look back at all those majors where he had incredible incidents happen to him, it would be fair to say the back 9 holes he didn't play as well as he did the front 9 holes. I can vouch for that for sure. So, but he took it in good stride.
It's interesting. I worked in Australia there in the late 90s, and when Greg came home to Australia and he was involved in a tournament, the tournament absolutely buzzed. The prize money went up. He was always there in the last pairing or close to the last pairing. It had it was an incredible. The tournament really came alive. Now, I was inside the ropes with him in '95 when he won at Kingston Heath, and I'd always heard about this aura that he had, and if he walked into the room behind me right now, I could probably sense that he was there. Well, he was playing against John Daly in the 3rd round, and I've never felt electricity around someone like I did with Greg Norman that time. That's the only time I've ever been close to him. I mean, what was it like? Is that a fair comment?
Yeah. He was an absolute showman. Has so much charisma, Greg, and he had that aura about him. He did. He was just absolutely charismatic, Greg, and absolutely when you came from he had a huge buzz. And look, in Australia, he was an icon. Obviously he was great at one of the best players in the world all over the world, but he was an icon in Australia, and the people just loved him. He played regularly in Australia. He was great with the kids. He had the Greg Norman Foundation that looked after junior golfers and stuff. He was just an icon there, and absolutely you could feel it. And look, he was a fantastic player. I just loved watching him play. Like, even though he was a hard man to get for, it was fantastic to watch play.
Yeah. So Raymond Floyd, you've picked up with Raymond, and it sounds like he was incredibly good to you. I mean, talk about those years with Raymond. Was he a little bit of a father figure to you? You kind of straddled between the normal tour and then into the seniors tour.
Yeah, he was good. Look, when I went to caddy for him, he wasn't in good form, and he sort of said to me, "Look, my game's struggling. That I'd love you to come and caddy for me. My focus is to get ready for the senior tour and that." And it didn't take long. He started playing great at 47, 48 years old. He started playing fantastic again. Got onto the Ryder Cup at 49 years of age, and had two absolutely fantastic shots at winning Augusta. Finished second at Augusta twice when I caddied for him. And he played fantastic. He was the oldest. He won on the senior tour and the regular tour at 50 years old when he won the Durrell tournament in Miami at 50, and later that year the same year he won on the senior tour and the regular tour in the same year. He was such a different player from Greg. He was so conservative. Like I said, he was a very unorthodox player, but just an absolute. He was just a gentleman. He was one of those old school pros, and he was a lot old. Like I'd caddy for Greg and some of these younger guys, Ian Baker Finch and Mike Clayton. But obviously now I'm caddying for someone that's considerably older than me, a lot older than me, not just a little bit. He was one of those sort of old school pros that you really appreciate. Came to the golf course with a nice little, not a suitcase, but a nice little overnight bag, and would change into his golf gear and, just old school, everything. He always used to say to me, when he saw some of these younger guys turn up to the golf course in jeans, they'd go into the trailer and then they'd turn into or travel, on an airline with the jeans and that. He was a jacket man, a time jacket man. He was an old school pro, and I learned a lot from him. He had an amazing short game, which when I went to caddy for Tiger, Tiger was very fascinated with Raymond's short game, and I sort of worked with Tiger as to how Raymond thought on these short shots and what his goal was and how he played these short shots. And Tiger referred to it as Raymondo. And when he'd have a chip shot, he goes, "This is a Raymondo shot here." That he took on board a lot that I'd learnt from Raymond into his own short game and became very proficient. When I first went to caddy for Tiger, he just chipped with a 56. Every shot he hit he chipped with a 56, which is not uncommon. Raymond chipped with every club in the bag. It was the only pro I'd ever caddy for that chipped with every club from a 3-iron to a 60-degree shot. And he had a method that was very, very sound. And he never, ever putted the ball off the green. Always chipped it. If it was 6 inches off the green, he would chip. He'd never putt the ball. And he chipped in more than anyone you've ever seen.
Right.
So yeah, it was. Look, he was just a fantastic player to caddy for, and it was some regret that I sort of left him, But to Tiger's credit, he had actually called him and said, "I'm going to ask Stevie. It would be okay if I asked Stevie to come and caddy for me." So he actually called Raymond, he didn't tell me that when I was talking to him, but I found that out later. So that was nice of Tiger to do that. So Raymond had been so good to caddy for. He treated me so well. He was just a great guy. But so I went to caddy for Tiger after him